Hi, I'm Alex, your host, and this is NoCode World Radio, in which I travel the world to meet the most interesting people in the NoCode space. In this very first episode, I will tell you a bit more about me and what I'm aiming to do with this podcast. Let's go. Hi, I'm Alex, and I would like to take the chance of this very first episode, this episode number 0, the pilot, we might say, to give you a little bit of context and explain the genesis of this podcast. I will tell you a little bit more about myself, and as you will see in the future episodes, this is the only episode where I'll be the only one talking because most of the episodes will be interviews. So what is NoCode World Radio? Well, it's a show about NoCode. NoCode as a movement, because I truly believe that NoCode is not just a new generation of digital tools, but it's really a movement. And that's why I want to show in this podcast. But it's also about traveling and about meeting other people, because I've set myself a few rules to make this podcast. And one of the rules is that I will have to meet in person the people. I do a podcast in French, but I've done, because of the situation, a lot of podcasts remotely. I've recorded a lot of things remotely, but I want to take the chance now that the situation is a little better. We're in the summer of 2021 when I'm talking, to travel. And those are two of my passions, NoCode and travel, and I will tell you after a little bit more about myself. But I wanted to mix that in a podcast. So this podcast will be a little bit of my trip, but of course, the trip is about meeting people. That's what I believe. Traveling is about meeting people, local people. And I've decided to meet all the people that I could find in the NoCode space, to talk with them about what they're doing with NoCode tools, what are they building, and also how is the local NoCode community. So this is what the episodes will be about, and each episode will be taking place in a different city, or at least with different people in the same city. Why I'm doing all this? Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm a nerd, let's put it that way. I've been in the tech industry for a while. I've been online since 97 when I had my first 30. What was it? It was, I think, a 28.8k modem. It was way before the broadband internet was happening. And I taught myself programming. I was making websites very early on. I was even already using a very old NoCode tool called FrontPage. Then I went on to Dreamweaver, but then I became a programmer. And I've been working in this tech industry. I've done several things, a programmer. I was a CTO of several startups. And then in my last company, we were teaching people to become programmers. It was a social project where we would teach unemployed people to become programmers. That was our way to help solve the unemployment issues that we have in France. I guess there are everywhere around the world. That worked very, very well. That was very exciting. A few years, and I was also running an agency inside that company. So I know very well the business of building products and websites and apps for people using code. But a few years ago, I discovered NoCode tools thanks to my current co-founder, Erwan. And he was following this for a long time, since 2010. And he's been always watching all those tools. And around 2017, 2018, we saw all those tools, Bubble, Webflow, Airtable, reaching a level of maturity that let us think that, okay, those tools are ready for production. They are ready for being used to do real things, and they can compete in terms of what you produce with programming. And we saw there a real chance to democratize digital tools and really, giving the chance to everyone to build things for the web. And this is very important. This is what is driving us right now. We want to teach those tools to all the people who are excluded right now. We say there is 0.03% of the population that knows how to code. Well, what about we give the 99.7% the chance to build things and see what happens? It's about building products, but it's also about being more productive, using automations, about using tools like Airtable to organize your data, to use tools like Notion to work on your knowledge and do all those things and have good planning. Well, this is what we call the productivity angle of NoCode, and we even call that now the NoCode Ops. We're very passionate about that. As a former programmer very interested in DevOps, I see a very interesting continuity in this. But I'm going to stop here telling you about my vision of NoCode because I want you to discover it through the interviews I will have in the coming episodes. But this is just to place the context. So I'm very passionate about NoCode now and evangelizing around those technologies because I want, and we want with my partner Erwan, to have more people to access it. And the podcast is also a way to access it. Just to conclude on this, so I'm the co-founder of a company called Contournement, which means bypass, which the idea is like we help people to bypass the technical limitations in what they're doing. Technical limitations usually being having to code. We bypass them with NoCode. So that's really the idea. And we also started the French NoCode community 2 years ago during the summer of 2019 and grew very fast. It grew very well during the year of 2020 and the lockdowns. And now it's, at the time I'm recording this, 4,500 people, which I think is the biggest non-speaking or maybe even the biggest NoCode community in the world. But that's also one of the reasons actually I'm doing this podcast. I want to see in every country I visit what's the state of the local community. Not that I want to be proven wrong. I'll be very happy if there's a bigger community. But I also like to compare, and I think what we're doing in France is very interesting. But I will also tell you more about this in the coming episode. But I just wanted to place a little bit of context. And I'm also doing a podcast in French where I've already done 62 episodes. So I'm very passionate about all this. But there's another thing what I'm passionate about is traveling. So this podcast will be a little bit my travel diary, and I will meet people and I will interview them. Each episode will be an interview. And after the interview, I will tell you a little bit more about my trip for those who are interested in traveling vicariously. I think like in these times of pandemic, it will be nice to have a way to escape a little bit this situation. So that's a bit also of my goal. A few years ago, I started an online travel magazine called Edgeorama. I'll put the links, and in general, I will put all the links that I mentioned in the notes of the episode. And you can have a look. It stopped 5 years ago, but it's still online. There's tons of interesting articles. But yeah, so this is quite different, but I really want to document my trip as I go. And so the coming trip, and each season will be a trip. A trip will be consisting of several countries usually, or at least several cities. And this first trip will be Belgium, Netherlands, and Germany. And then I will go everywhere I have an interesting person to meet, always by train if I can, or because I think it's best, like a better way to travel. And if I can't, well, I will take the plane. But this is nothing really related to the podcast, but I like to mention that as well. And I will sometimes mention how I travel and these kind of things. But yeah, so interesting people everywhere giving me a reason to go in their cities. And I will also ask them a little bit about their cities after we talk about NoCode. Well, I guess it's time to end this episode. There is no reason to make it longer. Thank you for listening to it. And please listen to the next one. You will see it's going to be great. I hope, because I haven't recorded it at the moment I'm recording this. But I have very interesting people on my list of people to meet. Thank you again, and while I'm embarking on my journey, I hope you will follow me along. Thanks a lot for listening to this until the end. I'm now in the train to Brussels and recording a short bit as I will do in every episode. After each conversation, I'll wrap up the episode by sharing a few things about my trip while I'm still on the road. But for this one, I'll just conclude here by saying how excited I am for this trip. See you in the next episode.